In the summer of 2016, I found myself working at a 3 Michelin-star restaurant in Modena, Italy. It is called Osteria Francescana, and that year it had been named the best restaurant in the world. The owner, Chef Massimo Bottura, is a master of traditional recipes, and his even greater skill is transforming these dishes into something new. Who could resist the crunchy part of the lasagna? Bottura's dishes were beautiful and delicious, and hardly resembled the traditional meals I'd grown up with. One busy night at the restaurant, sous chef Kondo Takahiko, known to his colleagues as Taka, found himself in a position of pastry chef after a colleague left without notice the day before. Taka was overseeing the desserts when suddenly one of the lemon tarts he was making fell to the ground. At that same moment, Chef Bottura walked in. He saw the smashed tart on the floor. He stared. Taka froze. Now, at many fancy restaurants, the head chef would have considered this a teaching moment. He would have yelled. He would have berated Taka about his sloppiness, or made a speech about standards. Not Bottura. He just stood there. He thought for a moment. Why, he asked himself, couldn't dessert be smashed? That very question led Bottura to create a new item for the menu, a deconstructed lemon tart. Nowadays, it's one of the most popular dishes at the restaurant. The name of the dessert? Oops, I dropped the lemon tart. Bottura looks at the world, even at accidents, and asks why. He approaches his work and his life with awe and wonder and a sense of possibility. Though he's incredibly skilled at cooking, his real talent is curiosity. We are all born curious. Take my 3.5-year-old daughter. Lately, one of her favorite words is why. As in, why do we need to pay for things? Why do we need to wear clothes when we go outside? Every time I'm confident I've given her a satisfying answer, she pelts me with another string of queries. Like most young children, she doesn't assume she has everything figured out or feel embarrassed about not knowing something. She takes time to puzzle over issues and doesn't dismiss ideas that might be outlandish. Curiosity has been shown to be a key ingredient to learning, creativity, and innovation. But as we grow older, our attitude toward curiosity changes. If you look at the data, in fact, our curiosity peaks between ages 4 and 5, then declines steadily from there. It's not just getting older that kills curiosity. I've taught for over 2 decades at Harvard Business School, researching how people can have more productive, creative, and fulfilling lives. In one project on curiosity in my work as a researcher, I've collected data from hundreds of employees starting new jobs. Initially, their curiosity was high, but when I went back to them 8-9 months later, I found that curiosity had dropped by at least 20% across the board, no matter what industry they were in, no matter what job they had. This is not because we don't recognize the value of curiosity. To the contrary, when I surveyed over 3,000 employees from a wide range of firms and industry, I found that 92% of them credited curious people with bringing new ideas into teams and organizations, and viewed curiosity as a catalyst for job satisfaction, motivation, and high performance. Curiosity, my research shows, leads to a wide range of benefits. Fewer decision-making errors, lower group conflict, more open communication, better team performance, more diverse networks. Yet, as I found in the same survey, only about 24% reported feeling curious in their jobs on a regular basis, and about 70% said they face barriers to asking more questions at work. We say we treasure inquisitive minds as parents, as colleagues, as leaders, as friends. But the truth is, we often end up stifling curiosity rather than encouraging it. And not promoting curiosity comes with great cost. The good news is that curiosity is not only something we're born with, it can also be fostered. How? One way to start is by creating the space for others to ask why or what if. We can model and invite question asking. Pixar Animation Studios has an impressive track record of hit movies and brilliant work by experienced storytellers, which means that often new hires are hesitant to question the status quo. But Ed Catmull, the co-founder and previous president, knows that Pixar's success relies precisely on going beyond Accepti's way of thinking. When his people get started, he makes a point of talking about times when Pixar had made bad choices. Like all other organizations, he says, Pixar needs fresh eyes to spot opportunities for improvement. In this way, Catmull gives new recruits license to question existing practices. Recognizing the limits of our knowledge and skills sends a powerful signal to others. We also create the space for others to ask why and what if. When we remind them on a regular basis to ask those questions more often. In a study my colleagues and I conducted at a large Canadian bank, we sent different email prompts to employees over the course of 3 weeks. One prompt reminded workers to ask why. The other prompt was a more neutral message about engaging at work. As we know from the email exchanges the employees had in the weeks that followed that intervention, curiosity had an impact, a meaningful one. Those who had been encouraged to ask why reached out to other colleagues more often, and they did so to more varied colleagues across functions. Their networks were much more diverse. This translated into higher job performance and ultimately quicker career advancement. Whether we are running brainstorming sessions, chatting over dinners with our kids, or in a meeting with colleagues, we promote curiosity when we ask questions and invite questions, recognizing what we do not know and encouraging others to do the same. Let's consider a second way to foster curiosity. On a cold January evening in 2009, Captain Sally Sullenberger had just taken off from New York's LaGuardia Airport in a US Airways jetliner when the plane hit a flock of birds. The plane lost use of both engines, which meant that Sally and his 155 passengers were in serious danger. Sally had 208 seconds to find a place to land before the plane crashed. There was no time to turn around. And there was no real space below. It was over a city of tall buildings. Most captains would have taken the most obvious course. They would have tried to land at the nearest airport. This is what experienced told Sally he should do. But Sally didn't stop his calculations there. Instead, he asked himself what he could do. After running through the standard options, he thought of a solution not in the box. He landed the plane in the Hudson River. Everyone on board was saved. We can all learn from this approach, especially when we're in positions of leadership, positions that come with a lot of experience. According to my research, there are situations where being more experienced, being more expert or more knowledgeable, leads to our being close-minded. Having experience narrows our perspective rather than broaden it, and this leads to lower performance. Experience, it turns out, can be a negative, unless we also hold tight to our humility. This is what curiosity is. When we acknowledge that the more we know, the more there is to learn. It's a posture of humility that opens our mind to the fact that there are multiple ways to approach a decision or a task. By the time Sully took off in that plane, he had tons of experience. Over 30,000 hours of flying under his belt. He has served in the military, so he had experience flying all sorts of planes. He had also served as a volunteer in studies about what goes wrong in plane accidents, so he had plenty of relevant knowledge. Yet, he had also trained himself to ask every time he entered the cockpit, what can I learn on this flight? How might today's flight go different? This curiosity meant that in the most crucial moment of his career, Sully was able to work from a broadened perspective. He knew to ask not just what he should do, but what he could do. And this made all the difference. Like Sully, we foster curiosity when we adopt a posture of humility, when we recognize that our expertise and experience are really just a starting point. We promote curiosity when we emphasize not just results, but also learning. Let's consider another way to encourage curiosity. In 1938, Adriano Olivetti took over his father's role as CEO of Italian typewriter manufacturer Olivetti. Right away, he introduced some drastic changes, including a much more efficient production system. He also made investment in the company's workforce that were unusual, especially for the time. He had new factory buildings built almost entirely of glass, so that workers could enjoy the view of mountains and valleys outside, and so that townsfolk outside could see what was happening in the factory. He also extended the lunch break to 2 hours. The first hour to eat lunch, the second to eat culture, with a visit to the factory's extensive library or participation in poetry or music events. Cultured, sophisticated, and community-minded, Adriano was an engineer fascinated by art, design, and architecture. He saw his interest as interconnected, and he believed he could promote innovation, the kind of innovation that comes from asking questions and making connections. If he encouraged his employees to pursue a broad range of interests too. Adriano was making a bet that he could foster curiosity in his staff by creating an environment that offered and celebrated many sources of creative input, even when that input has seemingly little to do with typewriters. His bet soon paid off. One day, Adriano was told that one of his workers had been caught leaving the factory with a bag full of iron pieces and machinery. Colleagues accused the man of theft and suggested he be fired. The employee protested that he hadn't been stealing, but rather taking the parts home to work on a project over the weekend, because he didn't have enough time for it at work. When Adriano heard this, he asked to speak with the worker directly. At their meeting, the employee explained. In his spare time, he was developing a new calculating machine. Intrigued, Adriano refused to fire him. Instead, he put him in charge of the production process for the new machine. Not long after, the electric calculator, known as the Divisumma, was built, the first to offer automatic calculation of all 4 basic mathematical operations. In the 50s and 60s, the Divisumma sold really well across the globe. As Adriano discovered, giving his people opportunities to explore and expand outside interest had reaped outstanding results. We too can foster curiosity when we explore and broaden our interest, and when we help others do the same. Input from unexpected places give people reason to wonder about new things, to ask different questions. It makes us curious. The Italian sculptor and artist Michelangelo Buonarroti is known across the world for many of his sculptures, like this one, La Pietà. A few years ago, a quote from him caught my attention. Michelangelo described sculpting as a process whereby the artist releases an ideal figure from the block of stone in which he slumbers. I find this idea powerful for the question it provokes, and what if questions I'd like to leave you with today. What if we look at those around us in our professional or personal lives and could see the powerful curiosity slumbering within them? What if our role, like Michelangelo, is to bring that curiosity out? Why not? The results could be a breathtaking masterpiece, whether it's an idea, a project, the perfect solution to a problem, or a famously delicious, highly acclaimed lemon tart. Thank you.